All right, we are now moving into chapter 12 of the Life Care Training Manual. The section is interpersonal communication, and we are going to go over two communication tools that are very helpful in two specific kinds of situations that come up a lot. So, the first situation is for when you're talking to somebody, you have some kind of a disagreement. And, the typical way that is handled is you each kind of go back and forth presenting your point of view, and you eventually either one person convinces the other, or you compromise, or you agree to disagree, and, no big deal, you move on. But sometimes one or both parties begin to escalate, and they get dug into their position, and they just keep getting louder and louder, and they eventually become completely dysregulated, and what could have been a constructive conflict turns into a destructive conflict where things are said and done that are often not helpful for the relationship, to say the least, and you usually wind up having to do some repair in order to restore the relationship once everybody's calmed down. Okay, so you have one communication strategy for a situation like that, and the other communication strategy is for when you want to ask for what you want. And you're asking, the person that you're asking is someone where you can kind of predict that it's not going to go well. They're going to get dysregulated. They're going to start, they're unlikely to grant your request, and they might be kind of upset about it. So this is going to be a communication strategy that helps a person in that situation. The underpinnings, the sort of biological underpinnings to both of these communication strategies is that when people become emotionally dysregulated and their heart rate and blood pressure get above a certain point, their prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for goal-directed behavior, values-directed behavior, that shuts down, and their base brain, their fight, flight, freeze, or fawn brain kicks in. And it's especially the fight and the freeze brain that seems to be activated when there is a conflict in a relationship. Either people become really aggressive, or they just kind of shut down and they don't they withdraw, and they don't seem to be able to communicate at all. And it's because they're dysregulated, especially if you combine heart rate and blood pressure increase with a feeling of helplessness or a feeling of being trapped. And it just, when somebody's in that state, it is not going to be productive to continue the conversation with them. Either they're going to, as I said, they're either going to become aggressive, or they're going to withdraw to the point where they're not really in the conversation anymore anyway. So employing one of these strategies to head off that kind of a situation can be really, really helpful and really, really good for the relationship. So, we don't always have the luxury of just being able to say things in an unthought way. Sometimes we need to consider how we're going to say them. Sometimes we need to take responsibility for the relationship when the person that you're in the conflict with has gone into that escalated mode where they're not really thinking anymore about what's truly important to them, because they've just been triggered, and they need to be able to regulate again. And these strategies can help them to become regulated or stay regulated, so that the conversation can actually be productive. Okay, so that's the introduction to this. I am going to explain the first communication strategy in the next video, and so I will see you there.